The streets of Los Angeles glimmered under the harsh California sun, but for Tony Martinez, they had long since lost their charm. Once a place of opportunity and dreams, the city had become a harsh and unforgiving reality. Tony had been homeless for 3 years, scraping by in a world that seemed indifferent to his existence. His once promising future as a mechanic was now a distant memory, buried under layers of hardship and loss. Tony grew up in East LA with his younger sister, Maria, and their mother, Rosa. Life wasn't always easy, but they were close, bound by the strength of Rosa's unwavering love and determination. She worked tirelessly to provide for her children, always encouraging Tony to aim higher, to build a future beyond the modest life they knew. For a while, Tony seemed to be on the right track, working as a mechanic, with dreams of opening his own shop someday. But as fate would have it, life began to unravel. It started with small setbacks, an unexpected car repair here, an overdue bill there. Then his mother's health began to fail, and medical bills piled up. The auto shop where Tony worked cut his hours as the economy slumped, and soon he was struggling just to stay afloat. He took on odd jobs, worked late into the night, but it wasn't enough. When Rosa passed away from complications related to her illness, it was the final blow. The grief, combined with his financial troubles, became too much to bear. Tony's pride stopped him from asking for help, and soon, he found himself evicted and homeless, wandering the streets of Los Angeles. Maria, devastated by their mother's death, tried to keep the family together. She searched for Tony, desperate to bring him back into her life, but the sprawling city swallowed him whole. For years, she drove through neighborhoods known for homelessness, scanning the streets for any sign of her brother. But Tony was lost, hiding in plain sight on Skid Row, where he joined the thousands who lived on the margins of society. Each day was a struggle for survival. Tony spent his nights huddled under makeshift shelters, his body worn and frail from the relentless grind of homelessness. He scavenged for food, searching dumpsters or standing in lines at soup kitchens, and his once strong hands became thin and weak. His hope dimmed, replaced by a quiet resignation to the life he now lived. One rainy afternoon, as Tony huddled under the awning of an abandoned building, he met Sarah, a volunteer from a local outreach program. She handed him a sandwich and a bottle of water, but it was the look in her eyes that struck Tony the most. There was no pity, only kindness. For the first time in years, he felt seen. Sarah told Tony about a new program offering job training in temporary housing. At first, Tony was hesitant. He had been let down before, and the streets had taught him to be wary of hope. But something about Sarah's sincerity made him take a chance. A week later, Tony found himself at the program's office, where he was given clean clothes, a shower, and a bed. It wasn't much, but it was the first time in years he didn't have to sleep on the cold, hard ground. The program offered job training, and Tony signed up for a class in carpentry. It wasn't fixing cars, but it gave him something to do with his hands, something that reignited a sense of purpose. Slowly, Tony began to rebuild his life. He found a part-time job with a construction company, and with the help of the program's housing initiative, he moved into a small studio apartment. It wasn't much, but it was his, a place where he could begin to reclaim his dignity and identity. As Tony's life began to stabilize, he decided it was time to face his past. The guilt he carried for not being there when his mother passed away, for disappearing from Maria's life, weighed heavily on him. With Sarah's encouragement, he reached out to Maria, and the outreach program facilitated their reunion. When Maria received the call, she broke down in tears of relief and joy. After years of searching, her brother was alive and trying to rebuild his life. Their reunion was bittersweet. Maria was shocked by how much Tony had changed. He was gaunt, his face lined with the wear of years spent on the streets. But as they talked, she saw glimpses of the brother she had known, the humor in his voice, the warmth in his eyes. They spent hours catching up, talking about their childhood and their mother. Tony apologized for disappearing, for not being there when Rosa died, but Maria reassured him that she understood. Life had been too much for him to bear, and she was just grateful that he was trying to find his way back. Together, they visited their mother's grave. Tony knelt beside Rosa's headstone, tears streaming down his face as he whispered his regrets and his hopes for the future. Maria stood beside him, holding his hand, united in their grief and love for the woman who had done everything she could for them. It was a moment of closure, a turning point that allowed Tony to finally let go of the guilt that had weighed him down for so long. From that day forward, Maria became Tony's anchor. She encouraged him as he worked to rebuild his life, offering emotional support and welcoming him into her family's home. Tony became a loving uncle to Maria's children, forming a bond with them that helped heal the wounds of his lost years. As time passed, Tony's hard work paid off. His reliability and craftsmanship earned him a reputation in the community, and before long, he had more clients than he could handle. He started his own small business as a handyman, and though it wasn't the auto shop he had once dreamed of, it was honest work that gave him a sense of fulfillment. Tony's success wasn't measured by wealth or status, but by the resilience and strength he found within himself. He volunteered with the same outreach group that had helped him, offering hope to others who were in the same position he had once been in. He knew that a kind word, a helping hand, could change a life, just as Sarah's had changed his. One evening, Tony stood on the balcony of his small but cozy apartment, watching the sun set over the Los Angeles skyline. The city was still the same, bright and bustling, full of opportunities and heartbreak in equal measure. But Tony was different. He had found his way back from the edge of despair, rebuilt his relationships, and created a life that his mother would have been proud of. And as the last rays of sunlight faded, Tony smiled, knowing that he had finally come home, not just to a place, but to himself.